Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Kuya Talks. So it's been some time, and I'm glad I'm back to film a new episode. So I've always enjoyed whenever a friend or family member has either their own business, their own products, I always like to support them and always like to just show my support. So joining with me today, I have a good friend from our old times working together. I brought him on today to share his story, to share his business, his products, and share his story. So joining with me today is Patrick Kehoe. Welcome to the Kuya Talk Show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So tell me, where do we start? So, so how did you get into art? What age, and how did you get into that?
I've been pretty much into art my whole life. Like, as long as I can remember, I've always been drawing, and my mom said I was very artistic even as a kid. So nice. I think it's just carried with me my whole life.
All right. And then what is your main where does most of your artwork go into, or what is or actually, as you notice on our shirts, this main character that we're featuring, his name is Melvin. So tell us a little more about how you came up with creating for Melvin and getting into that.
So most of the artwork I make nowadays is centered around this character I made, Melvin. I made him back in 2008 in my biology class. I was just doodling in my notebook, and I don't know, just one thing led to another, and then Melvin was born.
Okay, so tell me, because we doodle a lot.
Right.
What made you pick that this was the character that you wanted to push on to make more products of, to push on to new ideas? Like, what made him the staple character?
When I first made him, I didn't really think much about it, because I've made a lot of different doodles and characters in the past, and it was fun when I drew them, but it never actually went any further than that. So actually, I think it was around Halloween where I wanted to make this series of different Halloween themed characters, like Frankenstein, Dracula, etc. And I just happened to have this character, and I just kept drawing him more and more, and I started to refine him to be more like the character he is now, because he looked a lot different when I first created him.
Yeah.
So I made this series of 12 different drawings of this character in different costumes for Halloween, and I called it Melvin's Halloween.
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't have a picture of it or anything, but and after that I just had a lot of fun drawing that, so I decided to make another of different drawings and such, and I just kept doing that, and then Halloween passed, and I actually kept doing more and more that weren't Halloween related.
Yeah.
And that started to push me into making more artwork that was just about the character and not just a series of drawings.
I see. So you created this, give or take, high school, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you took this character into college, attended Cal State Fullerton. What was your major that you actually finished with? Animation.
Yeah.
So throughout your courses of assignments, actually, before we get to that, what was your toughest course, I should say, from in an art degree?
Oh.
Yeah, to get to.
Not just any class, but art specifically.
I mean, if there's another one it wasn't art, but still a difficulty. But maybe philosophy. Okay, and then into art, what was your challenging?
Actually, art history.
Art history. Yeah.
Which I had to take about 4 or 5 art history classes, and
wow,
I have an appreciation for the history of art, but as a class, I could not stand it.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of. So you did more papers, I should say, more
Yeah,
than actually making things.
it is. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't actually us making any art, obviously, but yeah, it was just sitting in the classroom and we had to memorize a bunch of details about different paintings and then take a test after 3 weeks.
Okay. So with the creation of Melvin, how did you often use him in many of your assignments, or it was actually more of like that was your personal project, like Melvin was your thing that you did on your free time, or did you use that idea throughout all of your, college? Like if you had an assignment, you'd maybe do it around this character, kind of say.
I think for the most part, I just kept them like on the side as a personal
Okay.
project sort of thing. But occasionally there would be projects where we had more creative freedom,
Yeah.
and in those cases I would use this character.
Okay. And so now moving forward as an artist, and it's a very skilled profession, and there's a lot of people that have a passion for it. Doesn't mean everyone succeeds, I should say. But
Harsh reality.
what would you say to someone out there either going through a degree, just graduated degree, or maybe has had it and kind of had their ups and downs with it, trying to get inspired or passionate, that they should keep on with art and not move on to another career? What would you say to someone like that?
I think if someone went through college and they really wanted to major in art, then I think to some degree that shows that they have a passion for art and it's not just some side hobby.
Yeah.
But I think actually, and it doesn't just apply to art, but anything, it's important to have a goal of where you want to be in the future, in life in general. And it's important to know like what kind of job you want to have, even if you don't have a job like right out of high school or college. That's your dream job or related to what you majored in. I think it's all about taking baby steps.
Yeah, I think
like even if it has nothing to do with the job you have, if you're learning, growing as an artist, just slowly like making steps towards that goal, then that's what's important.
Okay. Yeah, that's so from all the serious talk going to something more for fun of how we met. Patrick and I met at we were both under Target. I was working for Target and they had like a food area section, so they had Starbucks, so I was with Target, and you worked at the sandwich shop called Witch. And so we became friends from that. But what was really cool and why I brought you onto the show and why we've had a friendship for so long is just your passion towards your product, your character, and from the start just being at first an upstanding guy. Just from the start. Yeah, you're welcome. And and I wanted to do this series as like an artist appreciation kind of shout out for just kind of humanizing between the artists and their work, and kind of to see that when you support their products, like who it's going to, and what difference it makes in their life, and how maybe their struggles or their successes may be similar to what you've been through, gone through, or may experience later. So, but funny thing, and I think it's always a funny story to share, we weren't friends we knew each other when we first started. I think when I got there, though, I still knew you. It was more of just a hi, bye. But it was when you left and then came back. But I'm not sure if that was 2017 or 2018. See, that's the only thing where... But I feel like it was...
I think I left near the end of 2017 and I came back early 2018.
I think so, yeah. And so our friendship started there. Funny thing is when our first hangout was something we always talk about. I had a date, and we decided, no, I'm not going to go into too many details with that. But she called out like 1 hour before before we were going. And so it was you had to call 2 hours ahead of time to cancel. Otherwise, it was going to be a $25 fine per person. And I thought, I don't want to go by myself. And two, if I have to pay $50, I'd rather have a meal out of it. So I don't know. It was just a weird way that I was texting with him about something else. We were having our own conversation. And I don't know. In front of me, it's like I knew I couldn't just randomly ask another girl to say, hey, spontaneously, do you want to have fine dining with me? Because I think that would just be like, whoa, that's way too forward, just kind of out of nowhere. But so just Patrick, I was like, hey, if you're down, do you just want to just go? Because they called out on me. And Patrick was down. And I just say, dude, get whatever you want. It's better than going by myself. And what a true like homie experience. And then I was like, hey, get whichever you want. He's like, all right, I'm going to get the most expensive thing on the thing, a $50 steak. But he's made up for it. So, I mean, like, it was all good. I actually really didn't care. It's like you're going to that place. And it was called The Ranch, so if they're listening. Still a great place, but even though they were trying to tell me it wasn't too high end, but whatever. It was. Yeah, it definitely was. I don't think a normal place casually sells a $50 steak, but I digress. But yeah, just over the years, Patrick has been a good friend of mine. I've always wanted to do a thing to support my friends through my podcast, kind of just to show off their product, show off, why I support them. Let's just to kind of more go into fun things, like fun stories. I'll share one. And if you want to go into something that you thought was probably memorable, definitely to me was we took a trip. I actually had a trip. I actually wanted to see. So I watched on Netflix, there's a show called Daredevil. And the main actor, Charlie Cox, he was at a Arizona Comic-Con. And I was just going to just backpack it, go solo. My parents kind of just said, all right. But last minute, they said, hey, we want you to go with someone. And, of course, in my head, I'm like, who could I throw a spontaneous idea to? We'll go through way more spontaneous things. And I thought, I'll ask Patrick. He loves traveling, and he'd be down for it. And I covered for the hotel. I think you covered for the flight. I'm not sure. You covered something. But regardless, I just said, hey, if you're coming with me, I'll just cover for some of that. Because it is last minute, and I don't want to... It shouldn't cost you too much if you're helping me out. So, yeah. And so... funniest thing is really quick flight, and we were heading to the hotel. I was like, all right, you know what? I only got one room, but I changed it so that we have two beds. And and the funny thing,
you would actually be revealing this much.
The funniest thing, well, I mean, that's like a funny, Yeah. The funniest thing was that they said when we joked around, we said, wouldn't it be funny? We had to share a bed because I was sad because everything else is booked. We can't get anything else. And little to behold, we open the door and we're sharing one bed. And we're just like, oh God, we can't do this. And we already spent most of our budget and everything. But yeah, I think that was probably a fun memory of just kind of just saying like we were in that experience. It's just someone who's down. Just kind of like we put our things where I for one was just backpacking and really just saved up my money to go, so I couldn't. It was very limited, I should say, but it still was a lot of fun. So that was a good memory I had. A fun memory because it was just like we were in like the the funniest of circumstances. Just like, oh, come on, we're like, did not plan for that, you know? It wasn't on purpose, but how about you? What was probably a funny...
That was still a fun trip, though.
Yeah, no, it really was, because even the grad part when we got to the convention, we didn't... The way it was planned is that we had to literally take all of our stuff to the convention, and they did a bag check. And so when I had all my stuff in my backpack, they were asking like, oh, what's all this stuff? And I just said, hey, we just were backpacking and just to make it here. And they just said, oh, okay. But it was a fantastic thing. And some of my friends who were fans of the show, I got them some things for their birthday or for Christmas. And so that was a fun experience.
I remember something else from that trip.
We get to go into.
When we were going to the convention that day, we had to get there early to check in and everything.
Yeah.
And we didn't have time for breakfast, so I thought I'll just get something to eat at the convention center when we get there. And the only food they had was Wetzel's pretzels.
And by fact, let's for the audience that don't know, how do you feel about Wetzel's pretzels? It's very passionate to you.
I do not like Wetzel's. I think Auntie Aunt is the superior pretzel.
That could be a whole episode, so we won't get into all this stuff with that. But another thing is, so let alone that we were good friends. I mean, prior to this trip, Patrick was one of the selected people I chose to go. Actually, not even kidding. A month, because this was in January, a month before, I spontaneously asked him if he wanted to skydive with me, with two of my other friends, Jonathan and Quinn. And just like everything, Patrick was down. Just be like, you gonna jump out of a plane? All right, I'll jump out of a plane. And so, but yeah, just we had a lot. Like, last thing from that trip, funny experience. So let alone that we're like, oh boy, we gotta share a bed. And when we went and I told them, I was like, look at my reservation. I said 2 beds. And they're just like, well, we can get you a cot or another room. And we were staying at a pretty nice hotel. So a room was going to be like additional $150 to $200 a night. I was like, there's no way I could do that again. And then they said a cot, but I felt bad like one of us to sleep on the floor, even if we switched off. I kind of felt bad. So I just said, hey, let's just suck it up. It's awkward. But it's funny. I was like, you stay your lane, I stay my lane.
Yeah, we kept our space.
We kept our space, and it was cool because it was just like, hey, we're backpacking it. We're just trying to make it, you know. But the funniest experience is I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard this like weird melody. It's a weird noise. And I was just like, my eyes are wide open. I was like, what is that? So I nudged Patrick. I was like, hey, wake up. And I was like, hey, is that your alarm? Because there's no way that's my phone. And he was like, no, I've never heard that sound before. And this was two young adults lying, sharing a bed, just a situation. And we're hearing weird ass noises. We're like, not only is like this the weirdest circumstance, this place could be haunted. We probably picked the most haunted room on top of it. And I was freaking out. I was sweating. I was just like, oh gosh, like you're looking around the room because we had it pitch black. And then we're like, all right, let's just check our phones. Little to behold, it was Patrick's phone, but he didn't set it. And it was just kind of very eerie. But it was still like a funny story just to sit on it. But first time Ubering for both of us, going off a tangent. But yeah, just this is so I want like to everyone listening, this is a true blue friend that had all these great experiences with, even more that this could be such a long episode, but to get to the point is just kind of just showing that I had all these great things. I'm glad to support all of his items. And whenever such fond memories of when you introduced one of your managers, Marilyn. I remember the first product I ever bought from you was your keychain. Still have it on my bag, my work bag. I need to move it onto one of the a more daily backpack that I use. But yeah, just you always we can go over like some of your products, some of what your favorites, maybe even even to maybe your opinion, like maybe your least favorites or hope you could come out better later, in your opinion. But I always was excited to hear about your new products or ideas, board game, and all the cool ideas that you've put this character through that I couldn't help but support and even just share with everyone else. Like, this is actually really neat.
Well, as a side note, I think it's worth mentioning that one problem that artists have to face if they're trying to make a career out of being an artist is the business side of things.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon for people who are artists to not be like business minded, so to speak. And so, given that, most of the earlier products that I made weren't really made for the sake of selling, it was just for myself. Because I think for a while I've always been interested in the idea of customization for products and stuff like hats, stickers, shirts, etc. So I always like the idea of putting my own artwork on those products.
Yeah.
And so that's why I made them, because it just interested me.
Okay. Yeah, I know that was kind of a very interesting question, because I always wondered to myself, like, when someone makes a product, did they, was that, so that was more just the business side. It wasn't you thought about it too early, like, one day I want to make a plush out of this, or one day I want to.
Well, I did think about that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It wasn't so much selling at first, just for my own personal, I think part of it was just to see if I could actually get it done.
Yeah.
And that sense of accomplishment of getting something that I design and put on something in the mail, to actually hold a physical thing like in my hand, was like really cool.
Yeah. And so, forgot to mention, I should have said it from the start. Even the design for Kuya Talks came from Patrick. So it's easy for me even to forget the things that, I always appreciate them, because when something I've always done is, like, instead of reaching out to probably people in the business of just commissioning. There we go. Commissioning work for people to do as their like daily routine, where they want designs for businesses or for shows or anything. That I thought, hey, I'd rather that money, that support, go to one of my friends that actually, would it'd be useful for, and actually would more creativity, I think, could come out of it. I think it was just like saying I'd get drinks. I think that was it. Yeah. And so, so new things is you are now selling at a shop. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
So a couple of years ago, my aunt, who lives in Newport Beach, knows the owner of a pharmacy nearby her house, and my aunt told me that she would like schedule a meetup for me and the pharmacy owner. And so a couple of years ago, I met with her, and she said, like, hey, I like these products and designs that you have, like, you should sell them in this pharmacy. And life happened. Yeah. It kind of fell by the wayside. Yeah. And I wasn't able to actually get the ball rolling so much back then. But then fast forward 2 years, this year, I've actually made like postcards, stickers, the plush, Surfer Melon plush. And I'm actually selling them in the pharmacy right now.
What would be the name of the pharmacy in Newport?
Balboa Pharmacy.
Balboa Pharmacy. All right. So that's definitely, I still have yet to go to that just to see it for myself. Because I always, if I wanted to buy it, I'd just ask Patrick for it. And then I would just get a friend discount.
Maybe.
Not all the time.
If you ask nicely.
Exactly. And, but yeah, just overall, I think, and currently in the works that we've been prototyping with my sister Victoria and her fiance Hunter, your board game. I mean, we won't get into many details. I know that's something you're working on right now. Something to look forward to. It is a lot of fun. It's very different. And I think it's it's an easy game to pick up. What would you want your legacy to be for your name, for everything you created, and what would you want people, to always think, like when they think about you, what legacy you left,
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I know. I guess I'll say, I guess, like a legacy, because this is my third podcast, so it's very new, very still trying to find my own things with how I want to run the show, how it's formatted, and as you could tell from watching this, it's very kind of just, it is a little all over the place, but it kind of it finds itself where our own goal we're talking about. But my legacy, to keep it short, would want to be that I cared about my friends, I cared about my family. I did everything I can to not only show my support, just, I guess, I always want to be active in my friends and family's lives, and just always have my support and always just be present with them, and to know that I have always, just, I guess, just being as supportive as I can. That's something that I want to leave by, so you don't have to think of something too, just like simple, like you just want to be
hard to top.
Yeah. But like maybe just like you want to be true to yourself. You never want to feel like, I guess, a sellout. You want to keep true with, what you want it. Because Melvin, I can tell already from I'd see, is just, it's fun for you. It's fun to create it, to design. And then when you get your products, it's a sense of accomplishment. That's how someone from the outside sees it. And I think, I don't know, I always feel like, at least something I always see is just that you take great pride in the work you do. And, I don't think, I really don't think when you make any of this stuff, it's just as like a quick cash grab or anything like that. It's actually, there's a lot of hard work you put in to create your stuff.
Yeah. And even the stuff that I do make to sell, I don't want to make something that we touched on this earlier, I think. I wouldn't want to make something that I wouldn't buy myself. Like, if I thought the quality wasn't high enough, then I don't want to sell it, because other people will see and think, like, that's not very good quality. Why would I buy it?
Yeah.
But getting back to the legacy, I think in terms of, like, from an artistic standpoint, I want to make something that inspires creativity and lets people have fun.
Okay.
Because I think having fun has always been a big part of my life, which, that kind of sounds silly, though, because who doesn't like to have fun?
Yeah.
But, like, from a job standpoint, like, I know we could probably do like a whole other podcast on this, but like the difference, the conflict of having a job versus having fun.
Yeah.
Ideally, I'd like to find something that combines both. So that's actually a good segue to, like, if I could make a career out of something artistic that involves Melvin, then that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's my goal.
All right. Well, we will definitely have you on for another podcast. I can probably think of several. So, in closing remarks, thank you again for listening to this episode of Kuya Talks. I know with COVID, it kind of been on more of a break, mostly because a lot of friends and a lot of family have respectively gone home. And so they're kind of, once this whole pandemic, kind of goes away, and there's new episodes that we'll be able to film more episodes. But hopefully this is a good start. Glad to be back. Definitely going to bring you back for another episodes, because we have so many. Like, we just scratched the surface of just like the experiences, so many other topics, and this was more focused on, describe your business, your products, and but yeah, thank you again for being on the show, and look forward to
Thanks for having me.
So, all right, see you guys later.